podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
5 teams, 1 win. So everything is not as it seems, including for Leinster. Let's start the show. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Interpro Show, your home for all things Irish rugby from across the professional and amateur men's and women's game in Ireland. Join me tonight, we have D3 David and Sufton Adam. Ben is MIA this week. He might be filling in for one of Munster's injured forwards. That is a very real possibility at this particular moment in time. Adam, you're the only one of us who wasn't at a rugby game this weekend, so we'll start there. How was life over in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, it's been really sunny. That's why I look like I've just been like in the sun in Spain. It's actually just Merseyside weather. So yeah, it's been grand. Just getting up to things like trying to figure out if I'm going to a Tranmere game where they might get relegated down to the National League. So, there's a couple of things where that could, a couple of sporting dramas that I could go and see. However, I do feel like it's on at the same time as Ulster v Exeter, so maybe not.
I mean, look, I'm not going to rub salt in the wound, but there's a very real chance Ulster lose this weekend. They lose to Glasgow, the Stormers. They miss out on top eight. Tranmere go down. Spurs go down. And I don't know what happens then. I think we just never hear from you ever again, to be honest.
I think I might do like the equivalent of changing my name and moving somewhere else and supporting like I don't know a Mexican football team or something. Like I feel like that's probably the way to go.
You'll become the Vittorio Angeloni joke of like whoever they're playing, I support those
Yeah.
guys. That'll
Um,
just be your entire persona from then on.
I'm gonna do a Mexican Interpro show, but try and force four teams to be provinces and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's going to be all well as
But
fun and games until you try and claim that one of them is the posh team. David, you were outside of your comfort zone because you treaded down to the home apart to myself and to Ben, who were down there. I was covering it, Ben, as a supporter, and I think your own words were it was the greatest sporting experience of your. Sorry, no, that's what Ben said about you. It was a great experience for you, I assume.
Yeah, it was great fun. I mean, I've been to Thomond before. Um, never not supporting a different team. So that was nice. I'm still, I don't think I've gone to Thomond and has a team I'm nominally supporting lose. So that's, nice one for me as well. No, it was cracking. It was nice. I will credit Thomond Park. I'm used to the Aviva Stadium at this stage, which is getting old. You can get really good hot dogs in Thomond Park. They have like a proper barbecue place in there, and it's like
Yeah.
a really good hot dog, and it really puts to shame the sad pieces of cardboard that they serve you in the Aviva. So
Was
that
that
was pretty
inside
nice.
or outside?
That was inside, yeah.
Oh,
Um,
I've never got them inside. I've gotten the
yeah, I
burgers
know that
outside.
there is good
Not
food outside
100%
as well.
convinced they're
But there was a
beef.
lad serving burgers and hot dogs just before you walked into the terrace, so that was pretty nice. The terrace itself was lovely. I haven't been down there before. I think I was sitting down every other time, so the terrace was cracking. And yeah, weather was class. The rugby was, the first half was kind of fun for me, if not for everybody else. And then yeah, the second half was just like some cracking rugby. So yeah, it was a great day out. Went to Treaty City Brewery. Good place. Would go again if you're in the area. They do really good toasties, I'm led to believe.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah,
you
no,
never got a toasty. I'm
I
so
didn't have a
sorry, David.
toasty. No, I never materialized. I got a really nice pizza from Papa John's on the way home though, so it's not a complete waste of time. But
And
no,
that Papa John's does a good Papa John's pizza.
yeah,
I've gotten it a few times, to be fair. Not there's such
yeah.
thing as a
So
bad one, and of course, all toasted sandwiches and pizza options are great, and we
are we
appreciate it.
sponsored by Papa John's now?
No, we're not.
no, we might be
Which,
sponsored by Treaty City Brewery at the end if I could.
if we got half a chance, we absolutely would. Steve and the lads are absolutely wonderful. Do
There
great
were also, sorry, there
scones.
were two lads playing bagpipes
Mm,
before the match, leading the march in, and they went from Raglan Road to Field of Athenry, it was an interesting set list. It feels like it, but
strange.
Raglan Road's a song by Dublin, so I don't really know if they maybe that was just for me. I don't know. I appreciated it
I
anyway.
assume that's just know what they know how to play
Yeah.
more than anything else. We're going to
Things Luke
discuss.
Kelly has sang.
Yeah,
Some
exactly.
said Piardri's in the crowd.
We'll get onto that later on.
Very good.
We're going to discuss that Interpro in just a moment, but we also, of course, have Leinster's trip to Benetton, also in the Sun, Ireland against France in Clermont, and as well as that Connacht's defeat in Joburg. But to start things off, we have I made the notes wrong and I never changed them, so it says here Leinster rated Ravenhill, but that's not correct. Instead, it was Munster's win over Ulster in Thomond Park. As we said, they took the full 5 points, 41-14 victors in that one. And I suppose without Ben being here, Adam, we'll start with yourself. We'll get off to a positive start. And I think it's very fair to say, yes, there was a couple of injuries and it fell away in the second half, but it went better than expected for Ulster.
Yeah, it did. It went better than expected. I think the first half, as David already mentioned, was really good. I think we put up a really good fight. I think it did put in the group chat. It was either the global game, it was either the Interpro one or the United Rugby Rewind one. That like, oh yeah, it's all well and good playing 40 minutes, but wait until this team gets to 60 minutes, which is always sort of the clientele of the sport that we play because growing up watching a Welsh team like Newport do particularly well in the first half, you always go, wait until the 60th minute, and that's when you start to fall off. But I think for us, we did, yes. However, I think there's a lot of proudness to it. You had Atzel King scoring a very good try, very well darted down. You had a couple of our new props playing. Some of them lasted 25 minutes, some of them lasted 35 minutes, but at the end of the day we have a lot of hope for the future, especially in that first half. I thought we had a lot, like, uh, personally, in my opinion, I thought we were like on top most of that first half. And that was too pure. And I think that took Munster by surprise. I think there was a couple of moments where um we were really like we were really putting Munster up against the wall, and then particularly for the try as well. Um, really, really stretching out Munster's defense. But at the end of the day, I think it's just one of those where I can't be mad at this result. I think bearing in mind the team that we played, we only had like sort of Mike Laurie and Ethan McElroy getting regular game minutes in the last
Mhm.
year. I think McElroy playing 13 was quite exciting to see, especially in the first half. I thought he was really good at 13, to be honest with you. It didn't shock me. I know he's a talented player, but it was really interesting to see him move up the pitch as well. It's something that I want to be mad seeing more of come in the new season next year. I want to be mad seeing that at all. Maybe it could be a way that he can reinvent himself as well, given all of with the Jamie Benson signing as well for next year. So yeah, in the end of the day, a couple of our things didn't go our way. The Ben Moxham tackle, I don't necessarily think. I think it should have been some form of a card. But then you had the likes of McLaughlin and McKillop absolutely like tanking some of the Munster lads in the first half. But as I said, like there's more to be proud of than there is to be disappointed by. And being eighth in the URC is a bit of a worry, but I'd rather be eighth in the URC and focus more on this week's game.
Yeah, no, I would agree with a lot of that. Like, having been there, I thought Ulster in the first half really pitched up physically, but once you hit that kind of half-hour mark, you could
Yeah.
see, like, it's one thing to be fresh, it's another thing to be fit, and I think that that element of match fitness really kicked in. Like, I think someone shared the stat that, like, of the Ulster starting 15, like 13 of them played in the last A game between Munster and Ulster, or at least the one before that they played back to back over 2 weeks, and it kind of did start to show. From the Ulster performance, obviously they placed the two props before half time. Brian O'Connor, I had actually noticed he would looked a bit sluggish in like the phase leading up to
Yeah.
Munster going into the
Mhm.
corner. Like he was almost, and I don't mean this as any disrespect, like a revolving door in defence. Like it looked like he couldn't really move. So I
Mhm.
wasn't surprised to see him go off early, but it was still not. But then at the same time, obviously Munster lost Sean Klein early on. They had, Jaeger and Tom Farrell go off in quick succession the second half. So it was an attritional game, but what I would have been putting to Ben, I suppose I can just take it. It's just that second half revival for Munster was much, much better. And I wrote about this on my Substack after the game, or kind of started at halftime. Munster is just so much better when they play direct. And I understand Jack Crowley's not there and it completely changed your dynamic. And obviously, the second half, they'd Hodnett on the wings. They weren't going to be as expansive, even though he did get plenty of touches. But just when they played that little bit more direct and a little bit more up the gut, with your Gleasons, your Dogbos, your centres of Nankivell and Kelly, I just think it suits them a hell of a lot better because to play that game, you can play flatter to the line. Munster love to play flat to the line. And I just think it just started to click for them a little bit more. I thought, you know, JJ Hanron didn't have a great day off the tee. He was okay in open play, but like the centres, Nankivell was excellent, Kelly was excellent. And Calvin Nash, of course, went off early in the first half as well on his 100th cap, which is a real disappointment for any player and such a big milestone game. But when Munster started to play that a little bit more direct, I just really think it suited them. And then from there, then you can get Andrew Smith on the ball with a little bit more timing, for example, as opposed to like, you better catch this, otherwise you're going to get melted in the tackle type phases that we see from Munster, and it's hear him, scare him stuff. Second half was a lot better, but obviously, John Hodnett 4 tries, Alex Cadell 3 tries. I tweeted at the time, we will never see that ever again. That 7 tries come from 2 players, and 7 tries come from 2 players who play in the back row. Like you'll never see that again. It's a pretty cool stat, and I was delighted for John Hodnett because he's had a poor year by his standards. I thought that this was a very good game, whereas Alex Cadell, no disrespect to him, I think has had a better season. If I'm being quite honest, from what we've seen from the series, that he's had a much better season. And David, I was kind of going to lead into that because obviously John Hodnett was the star. Thought Andrew Smith did well. Thought Tom Ahern did quite well. Edwin Adogbo off the bench just brings such a power game. And ultimately, when that second half shifted, that's where you start to see because the first half once were really poor. But that second half, like it was Casey, Hodnett, Edogbo, Ahern, these guys who should be able to put away that Ulster team quite easily, managed to put away that Ulster team quite easily.
Yeah, I think like, Adam kind of said earlier that thank you, Puka. Sorry, you waited until I started talking to come. Hello. Yeah, no, I thought Adam said it well. Like Ulster did basically as well as you could have hoped they could have done at that game. To put the shivers up Munster for that whole first half, and they did. And like I was in that crowd surrounded by Munster supporters, they were decidedly unimpressed by that performance, and it didn't really seem like there was going to be much Munster could do to revive it. But I think that second half was about it. And it was like it's always a tricky thing for a team to have to deal with when there's just injury on top of injury on top of injury. Munster started really early with Jack Crowley I think he was hooked from the warm up. Now I think he's not actually injured. It was more precautionary than anything, but that could have been the shift of the game there. It's a drop down to go from him to JJ Hanrahan, who wasn't initially even in the match day 23. That could have been a shift. Crowley being such a leader for Munster and being kind of totemic in a team that had struggled the last few weeks. And then John Klein going off really with his HIA and then coming off again with an injury. Ollie Yeager eventually went down. John at various times you had John Hodnett playing on both wings, and then a brief stint in the centre with Alex Nankivell directing him around, which was kind of funny. Um, but the fact that they were able to deal with all of that and still pull together what they did in that second half, it was yeah, it was redemptive because that first half would have been so frustrating for them, and for a game where they felt like not only do we need the points, but Ulster have all but put it on a plate for them there. They would have been immensely frustrated if they let that slip away without getting um a bonus point win. And the fact that they didn't just settle for a bonus point win. I think I said it to Ben at halftime. I was like, look, that first half wasn't great, but if you did exactly that again, you would come away from this with 5 points and Ulster would come away with nothing. Munster went out and went above that, and they scored more tries, and they had fun, and they put on a show for a pretty decent sized crowd. I think there were about 20,000 people there. So, it ended up being worth the ticket price in the end. And I think, there'd be frustration with some of the injuries, and that might be a concern. They've got next week off. So, we'll wait until they actually make an announcement before we assess those losses. But no, like in a way, I think both teams kind of came out of that going, yeah, that was okay. Munster will be frustrated with the start, but very satisfied with the ending. And Ulster can look and go, we were definitely going to be outmatched no matter what happened. But at least in that first 40 minutes, we really put it up to them. And yeah, I did think I didn't realize actually going to the match that Ethan McElroy was at 13, but I thought he looked very sharp there. There was at least one line break where he just kind of shimmied and cut through, and you thought, there's a lot to be said for a 13 who's fast as well, and McElroy is fast. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he gets any more run outs there. But yeah, no, I thought overall, as much as Ulster, I'm sure would have liked to get something out of it. I think both teams will be relatively happy with how that went.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, like we've 2 rounds of regular season rugby left, and Ulster will look at it as we've picked up 0 points from the last 2 games, and Munster pick it up, think of it as we picked up 10. Like that, that's the long and the short of it in that regard. And now Munster are very much looking up the table. Don't get me wrong, I think they'll have a very, very tricky last 2 games, but they're looking up the table and thinking we can crack that top four. We have a chance. Whereas Ulster are now looking at everyone around them and thinking we cannot be the team who gets caught in, ninth spot. Which is, look, there's only 9 teams left in the hunt for top eight. Like we could know potentially by next week or this round 17 if Connacht do lose to Munster, that's essentially it. That could well be their chances gone if other teams win. So it'll be very interesting to see how it goes. And we might touch on that a little bit more next week because obviously we'll only have 2 games to discuss. But from sunny Limerick to what I presume was a sunny Benetton, I don't know. This was an evening game as the Italians shocked Leinster at the Stadio di Monigo. And David, I suppose, like, I don't really know how to phrase it because Leinster for the whole way through this game because you were watching it alongside us and on your phone. I was watching the women on a different phone. It felt like Leinster would just pull away, and they just never did. And it's a long time since we've said that in a URC game.
Yeah, yeah. God, it was immensely frustrating because Leinster had kind of made a habit in other games this season of not starting perfectly, as we have in seasons gone by, and rather being able to hold on until late enough in the game where they're able to finally make things click and things start coming together and they're able to pull away at the end. In this game, the first half definitely felt like a load of missed opportunities. There were so many instances where Leinster did the hard work and put together the moves to get themselves right up onto Benetton's line. There was a moment with at the end of a series of passes, Tommy O'Brien, like maybe 5 or 10 meters out, basically right in front of the posts, tries to throw it over his shoulder, and the player following just isn't there, and the ball goes loose, and Benetton get away. There's the final move of the first half where it's a line out in the corner, and this would be a chance for Leinster to score a third try and put just that extra bit of gap between them and Benetton. And we scuff it and they turn it over and we go in only was it 14-5 up. So or is it 12-5 up? So there was just a series of missed chances in that first half, and as it turned out, Benetton weren't in the mood to then let it pass in the second half, and they came out and just were super fired up. Their maul was very strong. I didn't realize they had that as such a strong weapon, but like we didn't really have an answer for that. Alex Soroka, I think, thought put in a pretty decent performance. He's a very effective operator. He's good at disrupting things, and he did that well. But couldn't entirely do it by himself, and they just managed to punch through us a couple of times with that. And those chances we got in the first half, we never really managed to materialize enough of them then in the second half to put the distance in. And Benetton in a game that just became an arm wrestle, and it was like we'd score a try and then they'd score a try right back, and it was kind of we were trading blows right up until the end. And I don't know. It was definitely a case of, and I got into an argument with someone about this. The Benetton wanted it more, and it's like it on in paper, on in terms of like what they actually get out of it, Benetton get nothing out of this game. They're out of running. There's nothing, there's nothing materially for them here. But it is their last home game of the season. They don't have any playoffs to look forward to. They lost out on the knockouts in the Challenge Cup in a manner that will probably have really frustrated them. They're not in a position to make the playoffs for the URC, so this is a finale for them. Like the final season of the game will be their final season, but this was their last home season. And I think it'll really serve them in the minds of both their players and their fans to go, the last thing you saw us do was beat Leinster. We'll see you next season. Hopefully that goes better. That's a pretty good way. And then there's players like Menicello, who, has is a lifelong Benetton rugby club man, and he's going off to France next season. So this was his last game in Stadio de Moingos, his last home game, pulling on that jersey. So there was a lot emotionally there. Leinster were out for 5 points, which is more important, but a lot more bloodless. And it was, I think, pretty obvious as well that their minds were very much on next week. I think we were all a little bit, I don't know, I was a little bit surprised by how strong the team they put out there was, because Leo Cullen has tended towards the cotton wool approach in years gone by. He put out a strong team in this game. They gave it a crack and just didn't click it enough in the first half. And then you could see it in the second half, because he obviously reached a point where he was like, okay, that's it. That's enough now. If we win this game, great. If we don't, I don't care. I'm taking Caelan Doris off. I'm taking Harry Byrne off. Jameson Gibson Park. Like, I'm not leaving them out there for the whole game. Because I'd like to win if we'd won by now, but considering we haven't, I don't. It was very clear that Toulon is the more important game, and yeah, and that final run of play, like, it was just such a testament to there was nothing in the rest of Leinster's game that would have indicated that they were likely to break out of their own half and score a try, and they still tried. And I went from watching that going, this is really dumb, to watching them get pushed back 10 meters into their own half goal and go, well, this has gone from dumb to dangerous. And then exactly what I was afraid would happen happened, and they get turned over. Or they get the penalty, it's right in front of the sticks, and he didn't miss. And I was like, and like in that moment, I don't even know. Like, it would have been 1 point more. It would have been the difference between fourth and third. Realistically, it probably doesn't make that much of a difference in the long run, because it'll come down to whether or not we can win versus whether or not Glasgow or Stormers can win their last two games. That's what will really decide it. But and I don't know if we would have had more respect for Leinster if they kicked it off the field, because that would have been an admittance of defeat in and of itself. So they were kind of in a winless situation there. But yeah, I think it's
Well, I
just
mean, I
immensely.
mean, they could have won the game. Like,
But
there's
they
that too.
couldn't. No, at that stage they couldn't. Like, inside their own half with the clock in the red, they couldn't have won the game. There was no way. The best chance we could have had would have been maybe to kick long and hope the Benetton tried to play it back and we could turn them over. That might have been a more sensible option. But trying to play out of your own half when you're getting pushed backwards, and like I've said it to other people before, like, where if there's 2 minutes on the clock and you're trying to run it down, don't try to run it down in your own half, because you'll start to play conservatively. You'll start to do things you wouldn't do otherwise. And if a ref knows you're doing like that, he's going to be on the lookout for cynicism. And you just put yourself, once you're in range of your own posts, it's mad country to take that kind of risk. So I think there were a lot of decisions that would have been viewed differently depending on which one they'd made in hindsight. I think I can reasonably say that they made the wrong one. It was the least sensible decision of all the decisions they could have made. Trying to play out of your own half with the clock in the red when your posts are in range. That's the of all the things they could have done. That was the least sensible. But yeah, I don't know. It was a really, really frustrating performance, and it's unfortunate getting to the stage of the season where at most Leinster have. At most, technically, they have 3 games left, because theoretically there is a world in which Leinster don't make the URC playoffs. It probably won't happen, but it is possible. But yeah, they've kind of run out of it. So it's going to be a season now where whether or not we win, and that's the thing, Leinster could still win the double, which is insane. But it's not going to be a season where it's going to be like, they clicked there and then they went on from there. It'll be a season of, if we do it because we got lucky enough to string a series of performances together at the end. But I don't think there's a reasonable point in the season where you could point and go, they clicked there, because it's just been too up and down the whole way through. And I think that's going to be a source of frustration. And yeah, it'll be one now to just go, this is a game by game thing. Win the games you need to win. Don't worry about the ones you don't have to. There isn't really one of those. I think if we win one of the last two, we're probably okay. in the URC, and then obviously Toulon will be the main one. But
Well, I have the table here just for people who don't know. So it is Stormers on top with 56 points, Glasgow second on 55, the Lions third on 53, just ahead of Leinster on fourth on 53, based on, I think it's points difference, because they have the same amount of wins,
yes,
and
yeah,
Leinster have more bonus points, so it's points difference. Munster on 51, Cardiff on 50, Bulls on 49, Ulster 47, Connacht 44. Leinster, as he said, if they win their next two games, Ulster could do them a favour, and there
yeah,
you go. Leinster could take top spot. But then you don't know. And I think what's really interesting is, when we come down to it for a second, Leinster's season this year, and David touched on it there, it's just hard to know where it's going. It feels a little bit more like Leinster previously, we'd have used the term treading water in terms of like they're just getting wins, bonus point wins, they're just going through the motions, but they were getting bonus point wins. Whereas now, it almost feels like shaky ground a tiny bit because like I couldn't believe it until I was just filling out the kind of notes that we use here. Leinster, 1 from 6 outside of Ireland in the URC this season. Like I find that crazy. Lost both games to South Africa, lost in Glasgow, granted a tricky game, lost in Benetton, a tricky game but Leinster the first team out, and lost in Cardiff. You were
Cardiff.
you were you were there, David. Like it's a very weird spot for Leinster, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah, so this is the second time I am on a podcast this week that I'm talking about Leinster. And in my first time I spoke about Leinster, I had a very interesting comment pointing back to the Matt O'Connor days of Leinster. That like I was really surprised by it. I got hit by a Remember Them. I got hit by a Remember Them by the comments being I think you missed this Matt O'Connor. Is it much like the Matt O'Connor Leinster where they just sort of didn't like it's really weird because we're saying that Leinster are having such an odd season considering they're fourth in the league. It's a very good league considering
It,
that
it's
everything
fourth, but with 6 losses. It probably should be
f-
said.
yeah, fourth with six losses. And then when you think about it as well, considering that first, second, and third both have five losses as well, is that a sign of how good the league is? Or is it, can you flip it on the other side going, has everybody sort of, is there a tactical hitch here that everyone's sort of catching each other out on?
I'd go the other way. I had this conversation in the Dexcom 2 weeks ago, and I was asked about it, and I said, is it a sign that maybe it's just not a great year of URC? And that's not to like focus in on Leinster. That's just across the board. Like Glasgow
Yeah.
lost to Toulon, Munster lost to Cast. Stormers had a bad European campaign. Leinster, granted, have gone the furthest, but they've had a weaker URC campaign by quite some distance. I think David, you used the term top 14 team this season when it comes to URC. Like, I'm not convinced it's been a great year. Like, it's been competitive, it's been fun, but in terms of like sometimes you want a team to grab the tournament by the scruff of the neck, like Leinster did
I,
last year, like Munster
yeah.
did the year before. Granted, they lost the semi-final, but they went on a 10 game run. You want teams to just grab it, and I don't think we've
I,
had that, and
you,
it's frustrating for Leinster, surely.
it would be frustrating for Leinster because I think that everyone had them on such a high pedestal. Well, everyone does have them on the high pedestal. They're one of the best teams, like in Europe. They should be one of the up there as the top team in the URC. But as David alluded to as well, that like Treviso had no like there was no dog in the race for them. There was like no horse. Like I don't know. I've completely messed up that saying, but they had nothing. They've had nothing to throw at them. They had Menicello's last game, yes. Their last home game, yes. They did the big whole goodbye. This is our season gone now. Treviso, and that's it. But Leinster didn't have anything to sort of combat that with. It was a bizarre one because you see the team on paper and you think, yeah, they can beat anyone on their game. But now we're in a situation where the Fidelity Secure Drive Lions are above them, and you're like, what? This league is bizarre. Saying that though, if you're a Leinster fan and you do, if we want to be nice to each other in the next couple of weeks, because we could help each other out here. um, like relying on teams like Ulster probably more of a fear to them than anything else, to be honest with you, because
Well, it's a
but
step into the unknown, isn't it? We've never
it
had that
is
before.
it very much is, and I do feel like Leinster should have done better with what they had. I think the Rico Awani signing not was it doesn't really have anything to do with it, but I do feel like having a big name signing like him, and we keep on saying this after Jordy Barrett, and comparing and contrasting with it as well, comparing effort levels and stuff like that. It's like chalk and cheese at this rate. Leinster is still a really good team. Leinster still, in theory, as we all say, could get top or they could. I don't think they could drop out of top eight. No top like to the top eight, but I just
Theoretically, we
think
could. If we lose both games, Connacht win both their games. We drop below them. But extremely unlikely, but it is possible.
I almost feel like if Leinster go on to win the Champions Cup, it might make this URC look better this year. That's my thing about it
See,
is that
I don't know because you have to separate it at a certain point. Like Glasgow for me are a great litmus test usually of how the URC is going because they're typically better in the URC than they are in Europe. But it looks like the arse has fallen out of Glasgow. Do you know? Like I wouldn't fear
yeah,
them if I'm a province at the moment. Ulster obviously played them the last round,
yeah.
second last round. Like I wouldn't be overly afraid of them, but yeah, it should be interesting to see. Just in a word, David, would you be if you were a betting man, do you think Leinster will get the top two in a home semi-final? Do you think one of Glasgow or Stormers will slip up?
Um, no. I think Leinster will finish top four, but not top two. And not just because I don't think they'll I think Glasgow and Stormers have basically I think each of the teams in the top four, except the Lions maybe. The one, two, and four, I think all have one 5 point win in them. And so I think we might move with the Lions, but I don't think we'll move to second.
Hopefully both against the Cardiff Blues, am I right?
Hey. I mean, look, you're allowed to say it. This is the Interpro show. This isn't the United Rugby
Who's
Rewind.
our other home game against? We're playing the Lions. Who else are we playing?
Ospreys, final round.
Ugh, that's
Oh,
annoying because we
that's
should
such
win
a
that
bogey
game. There's
team.
no
You
real
will.
That's
You'll beat
excuse
the
such
for
Ospreys.
that.
Ospreys on the
a
road are a
bogey
bit
team.
like shit. And like in all fairness, like the Lions are a good team, but they haven't won a game north of, Cairo, like all season. Like they don't win outside South Africa. Like that's just the
All
reality
right,
of it.
Montgomery,
I was gonna
fucking
say
North Dakota.
north of Cairo. Let me get out a map and see if you're right.
Would you believe that's the second time I've used that joke this week? Um,
I
well,
mean, don't
I
leave material like that on the table to be.
no, it wouldn't be like me. I'm great for recycling. Before we move on, I just want to remind everyone to make sure to subscribe to get all the latest content here in the Global Game Line channel, which includes the United Rugby Rewind, oof, um, which we talk about Europe
Cheers,
this week.
cheers for that. Cheers for the shout out there. Cheers for that. Both
Apologies.
north and south of Cairo, guys. You can subscribe to that.
We have a bit of an animal. We have loads of different shows, as well as Women's Six Nations coverage as well. And as I've said before, we are looking for hosts for provincial podcasts next season. So leave a comment down below if you are interested, or you can message myself on this show or on Twitter, which is my weekly reminder to check my own DMs because I do forget, even though I say it every week. But to the Women's Six Nations next, as Ireland came up short in Claremont, losing 26-7 to France. For anyone who didn't see it, Ireland had essentially four try scoring opportunities disallowed in the first half. It was absolute torture to watch as an Irish fan, especially after what happened last year. And I had woes down, like first half woes. It wasn't even that. Like Ireland were the better team in the first half. Like they objectively were the better team, at least for the first half an hour. But like held up over the line. There was a knock on at the base of a ruck. One of the held up calls I don't agree with. I think, she's trying to make a movement to get that ball down. And it was a bit of CSI TMO as well. Like I think if France scored one of those tries at the start, I don't think it goes upstairs to get reviewed, to be quite honest. And I think that's the fatal flaw of the Women's Six Nations as it currently is. But it's a strange spot for Ireland now because they're one win from their first three. They've dropped down to fourth in the table behind Italy, who had a big win over Scotland. And I suppose, David, I might bring you in here because one out of three is below their stated aim, and I'm sure they will, when they reassemble, they will say that's not where we wanted to be. We wanted to be France, and we wanted to win four games this year. But the nature of the performances have been a bit mixed, because it feels like Ireland have put in one good half in every game. and that's probably not testament to the quality that they have.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I think like the France game definitely fell below the level that Ireland would have wanted to achieve from it. I think it's fair to say there were a lot of chances in the first half that you'd be frustrated that we wouldn't, weren't able to completely capitalize on. There's some refereeing decisions that you might take issue with as well. Although you can't always blame on the ref. The other thing is the French did play a very good game that game, and that can be annoying too when sometimes the team you're playing raises their level to match you, and it's a sign of respect. France had to play well to beat Ireland, and I think you being fair, you would say the scoreline isn't necessarily representative of how tough a game it was, particularly from that first half. The Italian game, it's a bit of a different ball game because once you're leading by a lot, it's hard to keep the foot on the pedal. So I wouldn't hold that against them. I still hold in a weird way, and I know you hate to get pat yourself on the back too much from a loss, but I like the England game. I always just have to go. They haven't lost since like a final 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Like they're such a good team that you kind of just have to be fighting for a queen halfway up the hill rather than the top because there's no real unseating them at the moment with the way they have their domestic game so strong, they have their test team so strong. Like it's kind of hard to get around that. So in the context of that, I thought that was a really strong Ireland performance. Like the defense they put in the first half, even with the conceding of the three tries, I thought they were so well. And then to come back in the second half and concede less and score two of their own, like it wasn't a win, but I thought that was such a good performance from Ireland. Um, and so I think that will make the France game a lot more frustrating because it really have felt like we were in a spot where we could have done it this year, and 4 wins from five was a um, um, reasonable goal, and it because of that it'll feel frustrating to not have made it because I think Ireland have done enough to show that they do belong at that level. Um, but at the same, it is hard to go to France and win. That's always been the
Mm.
case. And so, as frustrating as it is, I think the thing you just have to do is pick up and go, okay, well, what we can do from this now is get 3 wins from five. And they have a game in Belfast. They have a game that will hopefully continue to sell well in the Aviva, to finish strong. But yeah, no, look, it's unavoidable. And this the nature of a Six Nations that it very frequently hinges on a single game. And unfortunately for Ireland this year, that single game didn't go the way that we would have wanted it to. So, from that, what we can say is control the controllables, win the games that are still left to you, and it's the Six Nations. You get to go again next year, and if Ireland keep trending the way they're trending, then 100% they'll be challenging France next year, and ideally, if Ireland keep trending the way they're trending, they'll be challenging England before long. So, no, I think overall, as frustrating as 1 from 3 is, considering 2 from 3 was the goal, I still think there's a lot more positives to be taken out of this championship so far than negatives.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I would agree in the main. I think, look, ultimately, Ireland have two games now where the aim should be 10 points. Wales have not looked good. Scotland have not looked good. Obviously, the standalone Viva Stadium game is going to be massive, but it's not going to be, it shouldn't be daunting. Like that's the reality of it. They should not be afraid of it.
No, and I do think as well, like I don't know how far our listenership goes, but um anybody who's listening or anybody who knows just like both yourselves and then like broadcasting beyond that, like I think it's also important to know like that game in the Aviva, it's past 20,000 now. That game should be selling out. Like there's no reason not to.
Yeah,
The tickets are
yeah,
priced so well. I think look at like England are always stood up as an example because 77,000 tickets in Twickenham and it's insane. That's incredible. But I would look even at the French because the French game that we played and it would have been a weird one for the players because the French have this weird thing where they like to play rugby at night for some reason. Don't fully understand it myself, but it's a French thing. The fact that that game, and I think it was Gavin Casey mentioned it, it wasn't family friendly in that it was on at like 9 o'clock at night. That shows you that the French took it deadly serious. They put it on when they put on the games that they all want to watch. And Claremont rose to it, and I'm sure their TV viewership matched it as well. Like that's when they put on the top 14 games that are the most important to them. So they took it deadly seriously. Now that we have the chance to bring it back to Dublin, there's no reason not to do the exact same thing. Like this team is more than worth it. And if you watched the game of the Dexcom, if you watched even the tries that we put in against England, like this team is more than capable of putting on a hell of a show. So I want it to sell out because there's really no reason for it not to.
I went to have a look just in case what big GA games are on the same day because obviously there's context to every conversation when you talk about attendance and
Ah, there is, yeah.
nighttime games and kickoff times and whatever else is on. The Leinster Senior Football final is on at Croke Park at 2 o'clock, and Ireland play at like half two in the Aviva. Why do we do this? Once a year we have this conversation about a game in Croke Park and a game in the Aviva and the same day. And it's like, look, they won't be both sold out. It's not going to be 130,000 people, but it's like, why do we make things so hard for ourselves? Like it is unbelievable how we keep doing that. But anyways, the GA would be known for it is how I'd describe that. But big next two games. Hopefully Ireland can pick up 10 points and that's all that will matter. But finally, to Joburg as Connacht's URC winning run came to an end against a fellow playoff contender who now find themselves in third place. I was kind of saying, oh, I don't know if the Lions are going to hold on for top eight. They may not yet, but they're in a very good position. I suppose having watched this back and watched when he caught the second half live in Thomond when I got there for work, Connacht's second half was pretty good. I do think they may have got selection wrong. Typically, teams who go down to Joburg and win, you either play like a very conservative, well, typically you play a very conservative, kick heavy brand of rugby in the first half, maybe first 50 minutes, and then unload the bench and then try and get them moving and just shut them down at source. Remember Ulster this year played this expansive game in the first half and they just ran out of juice because the air is so thick, it's so hard to do. And I look at that Connacht bench, Darren Ray, Sean Jansen, Matthew Devine, Sean Nocton, Billy Bohan, Shane Bolton. I'm like, that's not really a power bench. It's also not necessarily a fully electric bench. I think you could have maybe started Murray and had Joyce and Jansen off the bench and then go with Devine, Nocton, and Bolton. And I don't know. I had my concerns when I read it on Friday. I kind of looked and I was like, I'm not sure. Now, obviously, there's the Stormers game and there's the wear and tear that comes with that. And, there's rotation and there's the travel element because you have to go back up from Cape Town to altitude and maybe some players don't adjust and they made 10 changes or whatever it was. I think it was 10. I just think they got it wrong. I just think they got selection wrong. Like ultimately this game finished 33-21 and Connacht had a disallowed try. That disallowed try could be massive, by the way. A disallowed try there, you come away with 2 points and they'd be sitting on 46, I think it is. So they'd be maybe not top eight, but they would be neck and neck with Ulster, who I think are on 46 points. I'm just double checking it here now. Great podcasting as always. No, they'd be a point behind Ulster, but only a point. Do you know what I mean? Arguably a more favourable run in than Ulster, despite only having one home game. So it's a bit of a what could have been for Connacht for me. Like this could have been a set. Well, they've won in Johannesburg before, but they could have got it done here. And I suppose Adam, now when we come back to URC action, we'll have an Interpro Connacht against Munster in the Dexcom. It was painted last week. I seen someone say that's essentially a playoff for Europe. I don't think that's the case now. I think Munster are pretty safe on 51. I'd be shocked if Munster dropped out of the top eight. But for Connacht, it is win at all costs. You don't want to be relying on Edinburgh, who are my unofficial team of fraud of the URC for basically every season, up there with the Sharks, who they both played last weekend. You don't want to be relying on them letting you go into the hive and win on the final round. So it's up to Connacht now to turn over Munster in the Dexcom, which we know they can do. Probably going to be a sellout, and that will define whether they get top eight and arguably define whether their season is a success.
Yeah, I think when I look at the table and I look at I mentioned this on the rewind as well about how I think that Munster don't necessarily go to Connacht and win. I think that it's a very winnable game for Connacht, especially if it's a sold out Dexcom, especially given the circumstances of the league in general. And then you look at that Edinburgh game as well, and as you said, it's like a bit of a that's another one where you think they should be able to win there as well. I look at the teams around and I see us there, I see Ulster, I see the Bulls, and I see Cardiff. Those are the sort of teams that I think I think it was something like I think 50 points last year was the threshold to qualify essentially. I think it's going to be a little bit different this year. Um, I can see Cardiff going down. I can see Cardiff possibly dropping
Yeah,
down the top.
they'd be mine right now. I think they're going to struggle to beat the Stormers in the final round, and that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, and they're going to struggle to beat Glasgow as well, in my opinion.
They won't.
Uh,
They're not winning at Scotstoun.
no,
Do you know what? Cardiff Central, you can clip this up, and if you win, you can play it on your podcast. Cardiff are
yeah.
not winning at Scotstoun.
No, I think it's one of those where you have to look at the positions, you have to look at the teams that they're playing, and I think Connacht do have top eight potential, and I also do think as well that Stuart Lancaster went 6 games unbeaten, and that's a really good mood booster as well. Like you'd have to think that like this Connacht team deserve top eight, and you're looking around, and now it's not even about who you can overtake, it's about who's dropping, and Cardiff could drop. Ulster could drop as well. Ulster could easily drop points over the next two rounds of the URC, and that
And
terrifies me deep down.
don't forget the very funny third scenario where Ulster drop down to ninth and win the European Cup, and whoever comes eighth misses out
Miss
on top
out.
tier Europe next season. That's a very live
That's
possibility.
that's me banned from Galway on that podcast weekend.
Mightn't be Galway. Mightn't be Galway. It
Yeah,
might be Cardiff, for instance.
it might be Cardiff to be fair, but it's one of those where I do think that Connacht do. I think they can probably envisage themselves in the top eight, and I think they should. I think that Interpro against Munster is definitely a gettable Interpro. I don't think Munster will necessarily suffer if you do lose it. It'd be like the difference of like top four potentially, but you still
Mm.
beat the Lions in that sense as well. But it's getting to the business end, and it's getting really exciting talking about all these cases and all those scenarios. But at the end of the day, it's whatever team that comes out and plays. I do think Connacht have that capability.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And it's funny you say that because I have it as right now I have it as Connacht ninth with a loss, Munster fourth with a win. Munster drop down to fifth if they don't win, and Connacht get into the top eight if they do win. Permutations calculated courtesy of Keno Miller of the Mud and Rucker podcast. So it's very tight. It's tight at the top, and we should see how it goes. Lads, we have two sets of predictions to get into. European Cup semi-finals weekend, Leinster against Toulon, 3 p.m. Saturday, Premier Sports. Ulster against Exeter Chiefs, Saturday, 5:30, also on Premier Sports. Leinster in the Aviva, Ulster and Ravenhill. It's two home games. It's a shot at a trip to Bilbao. We'll go in order. David, how are you feeling about this clash with Toulon in front of it's going to be a smaller crowd than usual.
Yeah, it won't be a solid crowd, which is,
No.
you
Disappointing.
know,
Like
for a European
from an Irish
semi-final.
rugby standpoint, it's
Yeah. And
disappointing.
there are lots of like there are explanations for why, and there's a Aviva fatigue, and there's lots of other things. But at a fundamental level, you're like, it's a European semi-final in Dublin. There's no reason not to sell those tickets. But yeah, I'm nervous. We got beaten by one Italian centre last week. There's another Italian centre waiting over in Toulon for us.
Thankfully,
And
he's not as quick.
he's not quite as quick, but not sure Burks can take names when he wants to. So yeah, look, it'll be a tough game. I've got to imagine that the players who didn't quite front up last weekend did so or did not do so because their minds were entirely focused on this weekend. That doesn't mean that Toulon can't ambush us. They're not. I think the top 14 hasn't been going great for them, but they didn't get to this point in the Champions Cup for no reason. So it'll be a tough game, but I have to back Leinster to win it. This is they've been gearing up for this, and I think as injury riddled as we are, we've actually been like that for long enough that we're kind of used to it at this stage. So I think Leinster will squeak over. Although I fully expect I'll be at the game with my mum. I fully expect there's going to be moments where I'm pulling what's left of my hair out. But I do think we'll just about squeak over the line by the end.
I would be more confident in Leinster. Now, there is a weight of history on Leinster insofar as they've never lost a home. Sorry, they lost a
That's
home
not true.
semi-final last year.
That's not
They've
true.
never lost. Sorry,
That's one.
I'm don't know where I got that one from. That one is my biggest howler of the week.
We've
But
we've lost. We have the ignoble honor. We've lost a home quarter final, We lost that to Saracens. We lost home semi-finals to Northampton, and we've lost home finals to La Rochelle.
All in the same decade,
All in the
which
same
is
stadium.
we're all in the same state in the same decade, which is rough. It's Toulon who haven't lost a semi-final in
That
European
was within, sorry, that was
history.
within 5 years. The Saracens
Jesus,
game was
yeah.
2020, La Rochelle was 2023, and Northampton was 2025.
So you're safe this year. Next year you're losing
This
a
year
home
is an
round of
off year.
16
We
game.
won't lose in the Aviva this year.
Home
Next
round of
year, well, the
16
sky's
next
the
year.
limit. Round of 16.
But yeah, no, it should be fascinating because even Leinster have never beaten Toulon. I mean, technically they had a walkover game during COVID, but that's the only win over Toulon that they have off field. Ulster against Exeter then, Adam. The last time I mentioned this to you, last time Ulster had a home semi-final in Europe, home in Ravenhill, 1999. It's not quite the same, but it's against a big English team, and that's one thing you couldn't say in '99 because the English teams opted out of that year's tournament, and hence why some people say Ulster have an asterisk on the red hand. But we won't go there.
Excuse me, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. Bastard. Anyway, you weren't saying that anyway.
I
Anyway.
deserve everything that comes to me.
But yeah, it's the weight of expectation. It's the weight that we've said that's going to be on Ulster from the start of the season. When we looked at this game, when we looked at this run in from when we looked at this run in from at the very start of the season, we said that Ulster need to get to a final here. Ulster need to get to something. This is the big one. We've had a home run in Europe, which is mental. Yes, it's the Challenge Cup, but it's still mental. Yes, the Newport Gwent Dragons are still in this competition.
Which is mad. Pretty
Is
mad.
there, are we going to get an asterisk if we win it now? But it's one of those. Sorry, it's one of those that I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited, but I'm so nervous. We've got a couple of players coming back. We've got a players that are getting their fitness examined, which goodness help whatever physio is trying to whip Bryn Ward back into shape because I can imagine they're working overtime right now. We've got the likes of Timony back, Postlethwaite back, and O'Toole back. O'Toole's going to be worth his weight in gold as he's going to be trying to play two props at the same time. Um, but yeah, it's one of those where I think a lot of things are starting to fall in place. A lot of the teams, a lot of the players are starting to come back. Hopefully, we're going to have a lot less players injured. Montpellier and the other side of the draw are a very, very good team at the minute considering the people that they employ. We're not going to get into that. But they are it's Ulster's to lose on Saturday. I saw
Yeah.
Exeter versus Gloucester on the weekend, and I sat down and watched it, and I just thought, it's one of those where
Exeter are a good team. I
they
will
are
give them that, but
they,
still Ulster are at home ultimately.
yeah, and Gloucester beat them last week as well, and Gloucester not necessarily having a great season either. But I do think Exeter are a very good team. I think Exeter are focusing on the Challenge Cup, and that's a bit of a worry. However, we've had some really good games in the past couple of years, and I'm going to be very excited for this one. But I have to back Ulster for a win, of course. You just have to.
You're very excited, but you're not going to turn up, which I suppose is the most Belfast thing you've ever said in your
I
life.
much like Stormont for many years, I can't find a way to get there. I'm gonna blame it on fuel, plane fuel. Much like your conspiracy podcast, blaming it on plane fuel. Anyway,
Well, look, the only real comfort we have is that you're based over in England. I'm sure most of the people in England wouldn't even
uh,
understand that joke anyway,
no,
so
no.
it's gone over their heads.
Do you know what as well? I will be there in the Hill of Dickinson watching Fiji v England supporting Fiji. And it depends on whether this
Those
Challenge Cup
guys.
is. Go on! Go on, my son, as Mrs. Doyle said, and Father said.
Right,
But yeah.
gents. I think we should leave it at that before we get too hyper. I know it's a very exciting week for two provinces in semi-final action, but we will see. We will see how it goes. We may not have the two lads on next week if it goes heartbreakingly bad, but hopefully not. I'll be in the Aviva, Dave will be in the Aviva, Adam will be watching from behind the
Yeah.
couch.
I might dye my hair if we lose.
I think you should just dye your hair regardless. I think it'd just be good crack.
I'm gonna go full Rico Awani and bleach it and say I'm 22 again. Because that's what he's doing, let's face it.
Sure, look, whatever works, whatever works. Jeds, thank you very much for joining me. As always, you can find this podcast across YouTube and all the podcast apps. And please do tune in next week to see if Adam has bleached his hair in victory or in defeat. Thank you to everyone. This has been the Interpro Show, and we'll chat to you very, very soon.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.